Are we ready?
Ready.
So Jessica wins this time. She wins the runoff. If Paulette wins, then they get to do it one more time.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Are you ready? You ready?
Oh, John.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's fine.
Are you ready?
Especially on the free.
Yeah.
So this is it.
If he wins.
Yeah, this is it.
If Swagger wins, this is it.
This is it. Yeah, here's the winner of the 6 round.
Come on, David.
Okay. Are you ready?
This seems unfair.
Okay, welcome everyone to this afternoon's tech session, Build Rawles Classic Cars from the UK. As on Saturday night, this isn't a commercial, so if you have any questions about anything we do, you can come and find me and I can talk you through that. We are finding that we are supplying, supporting and shipping a lot of parts and also cars to and from the USA, as it's becoming an emerging market where it's tricky to get things done, and actually by the time you've shipped from East Coast to West Coast, up or down, sometimes you're not actually as far as you might think from the UK. I actually had one land from Texas just this week. So a little bit about myself. Hopefully we don't have mic issues all the way through, but basically I've done a bit of motor racing over the years, but it all started with this car behind us. And we brought this car all the way from the UK. So this car is an important part of our family. It's been in our family since about the mid-1980s. As Dad, Bill, was starting out in restoration, working with VW Beetles, different makes and models, and bought this Healey as a wreck and thought, this looks like a good thing to restore. We'll make it a picnic car, go out country lane drives, off to pubs. We ended up going to lots of racetracks. John, is this okay? Here we are, we've got Austin Healey 3603 on the front row of the members meet. That was quite a highlight when you consider the kind of competition we had around us. The 100S, obviously we've got Steve here in the room. For those that don't know, it was a car they produced 50 production models of. A steel chassis with all aluminium substructure, four-wheel disc brakes, and a slightly modified engine, which produced what would it be from new, Steve? What sort of brake horsepower from the new? 180?
130.
130, was it? Okay. Well, we've now got this up to around, I believe, about 200 brake horsepower. Depends which rolling road you go on. But as a car to kill some giants, is a great car. And around Goodwood, we're maxing out about 130 and an average lap speed of 92 miles an hour. So, if you've got a half-hour race, driving an average speed of 92 miles an hour and biased by tyres, it certainly makes you alive, makes you feel alive. So that was a great highlight. Obviously, the racing is sometimes close and fraught. You can see some red paint on the front right-hand side of the car there. That's one difference, I'd say, between America and the UK, and it's not necessarily a criticism. It's just that over here, the racing is equally as competitive, but the view on damaging the cars is a bit different. Now, we never want to damage a car, but if it comes to rubbings racing and we get close to each other, that's kind of part of what we do over there. But over here, it's looked on a bit differently. Racing in the rain happens a lot. That's just ahead of John Chatham's son Ollie. This was at the Castle Combe Classic, which I believe is happening this weekend, which always has a big turnout of Boston Healeys, mainly because of the Chatham family being in the Bristol area, always drew a good amount of Healeys to this. And this was 1 year where we had a lot of rain, and trying to keep this thing in a straight line across an old surface like Castle Combe, which is really bumpy, can be very challenging. And there she is this weekend at Road America. It feels quite surreal to think that our car's come all the way over here and is now raced at Road America, but it's probably something we'll only look back on in a few years' time and realise how special that is, really. And there's some discussions and plans which are being hatched for maybe even taken to another continent too. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of months. So the plan for the tech session really is to, maybe if some of you want to come down and stand around the car, we can have a look at it, because this car is built to what we call FIA standards. So every car that races historically in the UK has to run to an FIA passport standard, which is as the car ran in period. So you'll notice a lot of the things on this car are really the same as your road car. We're on four-wheel disc brakes, which are homologated, and we've got triple weathers. But as for suspension and damping, we're still on lever arm dampers. And this comes back into our ethos as a business as well, when providing sensible upgrades for customers, is this is the proof that sometimes you don't need upgrades. I know the guys from AHCA are here,
You're getting a downer for that one.
The discount's just gone down. There's some of the upgrades that we see. Personally, I don't feel always needed, and there may be a reason why maybe you don't have good braking performance. Might be another reason other than just changing calipers to bigger calipers, for example. So everything on this car is as it racing period, so it can do 135 mile an hour, it can stop on a dime, so really and truly for your road car, there's a lot of things that will be similar. And a few of the main upgrades that I would suggest for those wanting their car to drive a bit better, I would start with a 7/8 anti-roll bar or similar, a thicker front sway bar. It certainly improves the car tremendously. And for those not seeking originality with an early car, if you wanted to change to Type 16 brakes and a servo with the correct master cylinder, really brings that braking power up to what I think is a nice level, and you're still keeping it within the conforms of Healey, so you're not going too far off on a tangent. I know there's a lot of 5-speed gearboxes in the US, which again they do drive lovely. I do get that, and I have had one in my own Healey, and it pains me to say it's really nice. There's a car that says, if you want to drive a Toyota or a Mazda, drive a Mazda, and actually, for me, keeping it original but uprated in the right way provides you with the best experience. So I think if you guys want to come up, we can have a look at the car a bit closer. We are all quite quick to criticise the parts that arrive sometimes, and I think we should all remember what a great job the likes of AH and Dennis Welsh and these guys do to provide us with. And the parts supplier is a real cottage industry, and that makes our job so difficult. So yeah, next time you get a bit and you think, God, this has annoyed me, just bear in mind that we are really quite lucky to have such a great, diverse and also competitive parts network. There's multiple companies that people can buy from. So that's the first thing I'll say on that. So hopefully that gets me back in a good whistle level. Woo! So what I can do this two ways. We can either have questions pouring in and I can answer them, or I can give you a brief overview of the car and then we can circle back and answer any questions we might have. All right? Okay, overview. All right.
A piece at a time.
Yeah, okay, we can do that. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about this as we race it in the UK as well. So at the moment we're on a radial tyre because we didn't want the Yanks to beat us. So we put it on the similar tyres as these guys use, but usually we're on a bias ply tyre. So let's start with the most important bit, the engine. So this is, as you'd have in your cars, a 3 litre, full steel, obviously you wouldn't have that, steel crankshaft, steel rods, Amiga pistons, it's got Dennis Welsh alloy head, and the triple Weber exhaust manifold, triple 45 DCOE Webers on the inlet. We're on a Mallory, which is a twin point distributor. We do sometimes run them on single point. We aren't allowed to run them with electronic ignition. Normal coil, like I say, no electronic ignition or engine management. It really is old school, and we do have 2 condensers because you need them. All right. There's a range of different parts that we found over the years, but these Bosch ones seem to be the best condensers for now. Having said that, on the road cars, and if I was allowed to,
are they both wired at the same?
No,
They're alternate.
No, the one is disconnected.
Right.
It's just there in case we need it.
Right.
We can put
I
it
know
on.
that about Mallory, they go and then you just
Put another one on.
Put another one.
Yeah. If I could, I would probably run the CSI distributor. I know there's a lot of 3-2-1 or 1-2-3 and Petronics and different versions, but I have now fitted in the workshop over 100 CSIs, and I've not had one go wrong. I wouldn't necessarily go for the CSI Pro where you can map it. It's brilliant because it's mappable. It's also bad because it's mappable. Okay? Just stick with the map that you get, and honestly, that's going to be good enough. As for steering, this car is on just a standard steering box with a high ratio. For our customers and the next car we'll build, we fit a safety column which involves 2 universal joints in the column. I do think though, however, if you're really worried, if you get to the point where the steering box is becoming a problem towards the driver, you're quite lucky to get out anyway. It's got to move quite a long way back, although I'm sure specialists in here, Steve and guys, have seen the wheels where they've come back in a big hit. So that's a good thing to have. We're on an alternator rather than a dynamo. We've just found that it's just more reliable for those long distance races. That's sort of one of the slightly grey areas on the upgrades we have.
Which dynamo are you using?
Well, it's a LRA 100, which is from a Mini Cooper. It's not a Wasp or a branded part in any way.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, so as for cooling, and this is again how our race cars filter down into road cars, I noticed a lot of aluminium radiators this weekend. Now, I was struggling with temperature in this car at the weekend, probably because I was just trying to keep that Sprite behind me, and it was going through the 7,000 RPM every gear change. But on the most part, the temperature stays about 160. And the way we achieve that is not through an aluminium radiator, but an original radiator, a brass radiator, which has been recored. I know you can get that from AHCA and people like that, and with a 5-blade plastic fan. No Kenlo. I don't believe in any electronic fan in the front. Now, the guys in hot states around here you might need that, but for us in the UK, and it does get pretty warm, and we do send cars out to Europe, we found that actually by putting that on the front, just blocks the airflow. So we like to get the airflow through, and really, the only issue in my view is actually under bonnet temperature. So all the time we're moving, no one has a problem, right? It's only when we stop. So what we need to do is try and get some air out of the engine bay, and especially if you're on 100, popping the bonnet just so it latches back can sometimes be enough. And also a point, I never use that Evans waterless coolant or anything like that. Okay, I know a lot of people do, and what I found though is that if water's worked for 100 years, and you look at current manufacturers, they're still using water, okay, with an antifreeze. If I have a head gasket gone, I would like my car to boil over, steam to come out the radiator and say, whoa Jack, you need to stop this now, all right? With such like waterless coolants, the engine will keep going, get hotter and hotter and hotter until the next component in the line fails, all right? So that is something to bear in mind. If you burst a hose, you can't mix it with normal water. So all these reasons are reasons why. There are also valid reasons on the other side.
What pressure to run at?
What pound? I think it's 7 pound rag cap. Yeah, 7 pounds.
Do you run a thermostat or a blanking plate?
So in here we don't have any thermostat, but we do have a thermostat housing. We just cut the thermostat out. If we don't run any housing in there at all, we find it cavitates in the radiator.
So
Just some like a restrictor, basically, a bit of a restrictor. Okay, so as for where the engine's mounted, it's mounted directly on the chassis like you guys, but we triangulate the chassis, the engine mounts. They're quite common to crack off. So again, on your cars, when you're looking through the winter, just have a good look around them. We're finding more and more engine mounts are fatiguing off with the vibration from the engine. Into the gearbox, it's a standard Healey gearbox with a late top change gearbox with the Sebring ratio and a 22% overdrive. Then the rear axle is again Healey axle we've got a Welsh plated diff. It's not the Quafe. We've run the Quafe for many years. We've got a plated diff which is got no preload on it, so that's how I like it. So basically, when I let off the throttle, the wheels are completely free, and it helps with turning. It can, for those who haven't raced with it though, it can be quite unstable. Yep.
How much has the frame been changed?
Okay, I can come on to that. Yeah, sure.
Plated clutch disc?
Yeah, the clutch, don't they? Bill can help me with this a bit more.
Yes, you've got a series of plates either side. It's the original Salisbury design from the 60s.
Okay.
You have a Belleville washer on the outside, so you've got a little bit of load on them to begin with.
And how often do you have to adjust this?
It depends what you want. I mean, if you want it to run soft, you can actually restack the plates, so you've got slightly less surface area, so you can actually match those kind of LSDs to what the driver's preference is. Like Jack's saying about having some...
Season after season, or do you have...
Potentially, yeah, you'd pop them apart and just look. Sometimes you can find that the Belleville washers might crack. Occasionally find that on Jaguars, that kind of thing. It's just down to how the thing's being used,
Do
really.
you like them better than the Quake?
Well, I say, okay, so I like the Quafe because you can just put it in and forget about it. So for you guys on a road car, Quafe all day long.
Oh, I was talking about race car.
Yeah, race car. I like the clutch type, the plated diff. It gives me that free wheel on the way in. But as soon as I look at the throttle, it locks up. So yeah, it's they say horses for courses. Depends what you want to do with your car. So I've got a 4.3 to 1. So 4.3 to 1, and we usually run on a 550 or a 600 tyre, which is a bias ply. So that's some of our axle. Uprated half shafts, discs on the front and the rear, and we've got Jaguar calipers on the back, Type 16s on the front, and I run a servo brake. Again on this car, slightly different to customer cars. We'll run a single circuit brake system, but on customer cars we will run a dual circuit brake system just for that added level of safety.
I noticed there's no flap for just to get to the Weber's seat.
Yeah, well we've cut this bit out here. So yeah, it can be a bit of a pain. It just tends to be something we don't do for some reason. I don't really know why we don't do it. We quite like the look of it just being as it was. It's really only to get this lid off, obviously to get the air horns off. But if you're having to get the air horns off or anything like that, you might as well just take the Weber off. There's a reason why.
I have a question about the overdrive.
Yep.
You use it as standard overdrive?
It's uprated, yeah. So
Uprated, by uprated you mean accumulated larger piston?
I believe it's a higher spring, isn't it? Higher spring.
Higher spring and a bigger piston.
For the overdrive, Bill Hardy.
Yeah, so you basically just got bigger pressure in your accumulator circuit.
What about the like the unidirectional clutch? I have trouble destroying overdrives. Other than that, yours is standard?
So do you use your clutch pedal when you flick an overdrive in and out?
No.
Oh, there you go.
You lose time though.
But you put an awful lot of engine brake through the back end of the overdrive, so if you're killing the UDC at the end of the main shaft, then that's why.
Same way in or out, use a clutch. You use a clutch.
Yeah, so I have run data logging systems in this car before at different circuits to just try and extract a bit more lap time. And I found there was about, believe it or not, 0.3 of a second where I changed first, second, third overdrive and fourth, and then faster by changing second, third, fourth overdrive. And I'll put that down to the time spent on the clutch at say 95 mile an hour versus the time on the clutch, or not on the clutch because I just lift and flick it, at 120 mile an hour. There's actually that much of a difference, so the importance of going through sequence to overdrive is really important. But I love overdrive because it means I get that extra gear in between, on third or fourth. We might have a corner where we come out in third, you just want to grab third overdrive, back out, rather than actually changing all the way to fourth. It's just an absolutely brilliant tool, I think.
What RPM are you shifting?
So this will rev to 7,000. I tend to shift around 6.2. I don't really feel the need to rev it that hard. I don't, based on lap time, I haven't really found that revving it loads more. We've obviously been on the dyno and everything. I don't actually really find it extracts much more. But the negative, when the rod comes outside of the engine, is a bit bigger.
Talk about the differences between the Sprite and this.
Yep.
Keeping those Sprites behind, what did you have to do to keep
Okay,
them?
so
what was their gain? What was your gain?
So I knew based on the Saturday race that I could get a good start, and I knew from experience how the Sprites would come at me at the end of the race. So this thing, it can get up and go, but where it lets itself down is because we haven't got things like brake ducting. Brakes start to overheat. The efficiency of the brakes go down. Sometimes if you're pushing it hard, lap after lap after lap, engine temperature can go up. The tyres get too hot. It's a lot heavier car. So I knew the Sprites would be coming at us. So I had to build a big gap at the start, and then keep an eye on my mirror, and make sure I was looking at the same point every lap. Because it's also, you can look in the corner at one point and the Sprite is literally right behind you and you think, I've lost my lead. And then when you get back on the straight, you think, no, I haven't. So if you keep making sure you look at the same point every lap is really important, because that's how you can judge your distance. And also, I wanted to make sure I didn't actually gap them too much. And this comes from some of my modern racing experience, in that it's not always about just going out as fast as you can. So what I wanted to do was, if I knew the two Sprites, as long as they were battling, couldn't overtake me. If one of them pulled away from the other one, what I was going to do was try and back him back into the other car. Okay. So if my gap was too big and the Sprite got into second and had too big a gap, my chance of backing him into him were less. So I made sure I kept an eye on him, and as soon as he looked like he started to get past, I started to sort of back it off a bit.
and what I would have done is back the silver car into the white car. It turned out that actually I was having to lift and coast a bit to try and keep it cool. I didn't really quite get that luxury, and I mean, to be fair to the organisers, Road America was absolutely perfect to have probably one of the fastest sprites, one of the fastest Healeys to cross the line almost neck and neck. Really, you couldn't have a better racetrack than that, you know. So it showed that actually the race distance and everything worked out just right. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Where the Sprite was better, obviously on the brakes, looking after its brakes, looking after its tyres, being stickier tyres. So all the twisty stuff is where it was really good. So I mean, fair play to them. There's some quick Sprites. Yeah, that was pretty cool. As for suspension, we're on sliding top mounts. So you can get these adjustable top mounts where you can slide the shockers in. And that's what we've got to get the camber we want. We run about 1.5 degrees front camber and pretty much parallel front tracking. You'll know that, you know, with the way that the steering is set, you can't adjust either side. So, you know, you're on a central rod, so you adjust the tracking to that. Obviously, the rear is parallel based on the rear axle. Well, you'd hope so, anyway. Maybe.
On a good day, right?
On a good day, yeah. The front suspension, things that we found, well, the works guys found, and we continue to do as well because it is true. What's interesting is although the works guys didn't really have very long to develop this stuff, you know, you think how quickly it was between building them and racing them. They got it pretty good, really. You know, they found where the weak points were. They you know, strengthened the front suspension mountings. That's what we have to do. And so, yeah, those things have been carried on. So, yeah, we've got strengthening for the chassis. To answer your question, obviously we've got a cage in there now, so that gives a lot of residual, a lot of strengthening into the car. It's not welded in; it has to be bolted in by regulation. The front suspension mounts are all beefed up, so we have some triangulation on the front wishbone mounts. The engine mounts are triangulated. The rear shock mounts are triangulated. That's really it for strengthening and changes to chassis, I would say. Obviously Weber cutout, a few little bits and bobs around to fit different things in, but other than that, it's pretty much a Healey chassis.
I have a question.
Rod on there.
Yeah, panhard rod. That's correct. Yeah.
I may have missed front and rear sway bars.
Okay, so again, no rear sway bar. I don't think that works.
Why not? Because
Okay.
I know some people are doing some.
Yeah. So I might be wrong, but my theory is that you've got the rear axle anyway, so that's kind of your sway bar, right? They're joined in the same way. And I found that a rear sway bar on a race car actually makes it sort of hop round the corner. It really, in a weird way. Take that off straight away, it's a lot better. And I think we're 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches front anti-roll bar. I can't remember off the top of my head. And if we go to a twistier circuit, we might put a smaller sway bar, anti-roll bar on the front, and a faster high-speed circuit, we'll put a thicker anti-roll bar on the front. That will either make it turn in better or give it more stability at high speed.
And what's the toe sit?
Well,
Toe in, toe in?
we're pretty much parallel. Yeah.
Was that car homologated with a Panhard bar?
I believe it was, yeah.
Or was it a non-FIA allowable?
No, they were homologated with the Panhard.
Okay, because on the Sebring,
Yeah.
FIA doesn't
Yes,
want to
correct,
put a
yeah.
Panhard on it, so it depends on, you know, like this event, those sort of things are optional. Some, if they run under more strict rules.
Yeah.
Panhard.
Yeah, from new, correct, that's right. I have seen people put Watts linkages on and things like that, and I'm sure it would help. But again, it kind of goes back to that thing of, you know, we're racing a Healey because we want to race a Healey. If we wanted it to go around corners, we'd race an MX-5. If we wanted to go well in a straight line, I'll go and get a V8, you know, so it's, that's it.
Do you think that the bias ply tires are kinder to the car than?
Yeah, so I actually, you know, I like Eileen race and Scott, they race on Hoosiers. Actually, when we have that similar thing in the UK, I don't like racing the car on those. I think, you know, the vehicle wasn't designed to have that sort of force going through the suspension and rear axle and everything like that. So I think, to be correct, the bias ply is a lot kinder on the car, and it suits the characteristics as well. You know. So you can set it in nicely and just feed on the throttle, and all this footage you see at Goodwood, these cars going really sideways, and you think, wow, that's impressive, which it is, but it's actually not that hard. I don't recommend you go out and do it this afternoon, but because of the way the tyres are, it's very progressive. So you feel it coming. It doesn't just snap sideways, and you sort of build up to it. So, and as we can see from Goodwood and such, it produces fantastic racing. But we see that all around Europe and the UK. Almost every weekend there is a mini Goodwood revival going on. So, although it's an amazing spectacle, it does happen quite often, really.
What about spring rates?
So these are 800-pound front springs, and then I'm running Welsh's race rear springs.
Does that lower it too, or standard height?
No, so that's a good point. So then, what do we take from our modern racing experience with the cars we've run and apply it to this? Because a lot of the time, people will say, well, it's an old race car. What do you expect? It should never handle right. What we've done is we put all of our cars on corner weight scales. So every wheel has a scale underneath it, and then we measure the scale. We put the driver in the seat, and then we can adjust the car in different ways. There's only so much you can do though on this, because you haven't got coil-over adjustable springs. The way in which we do it is that we drop the front spring pan if we want to lower the front ride height. If we want to lower the rear ride height, we'll space underneath the spring and the axle, and then you can get that to a point, and then the final adjustment can come on the sway bar. And it's amazing how many kilos or pounds you can change on the sway bar. Ideally, you want to put that in with no preload in it, but if you do preload the sway bar, it'll actually twist the car, which will change the dynamics. So what we're looking to do in that is when I'm sat over the right rear wheel, essentially whatever you do has an effect on an opposite corner. So if you push down the right rear, it's going to lift up the left front, and vice versa. Now you've got to remember, you can never change the total weight of the car, you can only move it around. So you can get it close enough. And then after that, this car has been brought up to homologated weight by putting lead in different places. So this actually got lead packed into the engine mount at the front. And on the front wheel arch, we have a load of lead there as well, just trying to get some weight on this corner, so that when you come into braking zone, you're not always locking up, say, the left front or the right front, for whatever reason.
What is the weight in pounds?
So it's 1,040 kilos. It's 2.2 pounds a kilo. So what's that? 2228, something like that. Yeah. Pounds. All right. And then we have a 100 litre tank in the back, which is like 28 gallons. Is that right? 28 gallons, and that will last us about an hour and 20 minutes at full race pace. So it's just like pouring it in, basically. And so when we go and do the spa 3 hours, you can work out how many times you need to fill the tank, the start of the full tank, and so your strategy comes into it a bit more as well. Wet weather, safety cars, you can win it or lose it in the pit stop, and how much time you spend refueling.
Is there much difference between a full tank when you drive it and a quarter?
Yeah.
It's so like you have to change your driving as the gas expires.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's the amazing thing. If you do a long stint in these cars, you feel the weight start to burn off, and it goes from just being really sluggish in the corners. And you've got to, as a driver, you've got to think about that, not try and push it too hard, burn up the tyres. You've got a lot more weight in the back over the rear axle, sloshing about. So as the fuel burns off, the car becomes alive, and it puts a smile on your face, and then you go and fill the tank up again, and you start again. So as for the engine, we're also on tappet rockers, so we've not got roller rockers or anything like that, it goes to prove this weekend that sometimes these things might not actually be necessary.
Why don't you use roller rockers?
They're not homologated with them. We're not allowed to. And really, we don't have. Don't need to. You can see that.
What about
6 ratio?
No.
Stand 14. Talk about tyre pressures.
Okay, so tyre pressures. So tyre pressures are massively important. Has he got a notebook?
Yeah.
Somebody's recording.
We've all got notebooks.
Yes.
Now his answers are going to change.
That's right. Yeah. Tyre pressures. 50 psi. So tyre pressures. Are we okay in psi? Yeah, pounds per square inch. Yeah, we psi. Okay. So what we're looking for is have a hot pressure of in these tyres of about 36 hot. So what's interesting is we go out and race, and the next morning you measure your tyre pressures, and you might have 24, 22, 28. They're all different, and you can set a new set of tyres with those pressures, and they'll all come up to 36. That's what you want. So you set hot pressure. We go hot pressure 36 on these, and really important in racing, but massively important in road cars. People, when was the last time everyone here checked their tyre pressures? Today? 2 weeks ago? Has anyone checked their tyre pressures 2 months ago? Yeah. Okay, now 1 or 2 psi completely changes the car, and it sounds stupid, but it's true. So I recommend, it depends on the tyre size, but roughly 26, 28, around that for your road car. If you're struggling with really heavy steering, you probably don't need to put needle roller kingpin bushes in. Just pump your tyres up a bit, or get a new set of tyres. Every 10 years, change your tyres. I like to, people say, well, they've got so much tread on them. You go, it doesn't matter, right? New set of tyres, changes the car. I like the Verdestein Sprint Classic. That's my favourite on a road car with a 185 standard profile. I think that sets the car off really nicely. If you don't quite fit, you can go for a 185/70, 5.5 inch rims. That's good.
What's your compression ratio?
About 11.5 to 1. Yeah.
Hey Geoff.
Yep.
We've got another meeting going to start right now.
That's fine.
Delegates.
That's
So
fine.
Maybe we take one more question.
How much power does this motor make?
Right, we've got 3 more questions. Power-wise, realistically, it's about 240 brake horsepower, not 300. If you want to buy an engine, and I tell you it's 300, it's 300, but it's not true. It's 240 brake horsepower, and I can tell you when I go along the straight with every other pair in the UK, we go neck and neck all the way up the straight together. So they haven't got 300 either. All right?
Sunday afternoon.
Yep.
Last lap.
Yep.
14.
Yep.
Sprite gets by you.
Yep.
What do you think?
I thought, damn, I shouldn't have braked that late. I locked up. I thought I'd lost it. Genuinely, I thought, as I come on the last lap, and I know we've got to go, I come on the last lap, I said, if you don't mess up 14, Canada corner, right? Is that what it is? Don't mess it up, it's in the bag. And what did I do? I messed it up, right? And when I saw the Sprite come past, I thought, I've done it, he's done it. But,
well, we didn't see the start-finish line.
Right.
What should you mean by it?
Yeah, I think it was about, someone said 2 tenths, 3 tenths.
I think he was within a car.
Oh, I think he was.
You barely hit him.
Barely nicked him. Yeah.
Because I wasn't.
Yeah. Right, one more question, anyone?
Did you have to lift?
What's your opinion about shocks, upgrading from Armstrong shocks to tubular shocks?
The ride is certainly improved, but it goes back to my old thing. I like to have a nicely set of serviced Armstrong shocks. The car is as it was out the factory, and I just think that's the way it should be.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.